Alright, the min-maxer build. Let's talk about it. This is the one that looks perfect on paper, and it basically is. Savings rate between 50 and 75% of income. Emergency fund fully stocked. Roth IRA max since age 22. Net worth trending toward financial independence by 45, maybe 50 if the market cooperates. The build is mechanically excellent. The character is statistically miserable. If you watch the main character breakdown, the build that maxed charisma, dumped wisdom, and treated personal finance like a movie where they're the protagonist and someone else is picking up the tab. The min-maxer is the exact mirror inversion, where the main character spent everything and saved nothing. The min-maxer saves everything and spends nothing. Same broken equation, different variable optimized into the ground. This isn't a video telling you to stop saving. The savings work, the math is correct, the build genuinely speedruns retirement. This is a video about what gets dumped to make that happen and why the spreadsheet can't see it. Let's get into the build sheet. Chapter 1, Character Creation. The min-maxer didn't roll this build randomly. There's a backstory. Most min-maxers have a scarcity origin story, a parent who ran out of money, a moment where the household was financially precarious and nobody talked about it, or they just absorbed the cultural data. 58% of Americans near retirement say they wish they'd saved more. That stat is real. That fear is rational. The min-maxer looked at that number and said, not me. And then they spec'd entirely into wisdom and intelligence, dumped charisma and joy, and joined the FIRE faction. Financial independence, retire early, where the guild motto is 25 times your annual expenses and you're free. The build makes sense. Given the inputs, this is the logical output. The problem isn't the logic. The problem is that the min-maxer is running a correct equation on the wrong variable. They're optimizing for net worth when the actual objective is lifetime fulfillment. The spreadsheet doesn't know that. The spreadsheet has what the spreadsheet has. Chapter 2, the stat sheet. Class. The min-maxer role. Optimizer alignment. Lawful frugal primary stats. Wisdom, intelligence, constitution, dump stats. Charisma, joy, time awareness, strengths first because the build earns them. Constitution is maxed. 6 to 12 months of emergency fund. The min-maxer can absorb any single critical hit the financial world throws. Job loss, medical event, market correction, and not even flinch. This is not a glass cannon. This is a tank that also has a fully funded HSA and will not stop telling you why that matters. Intelligence is similarly stacked. The min-maxer knows the expense ratio of every fund they own to 4 decimal places. They have a passive ability called latte math that auto-converts any purchase under $10 into its future value over 30 years. $4 coffee? That's $87 in 3 decades. The ability fires automatically. They cannot turn it off. Now the dump stats. Charisma has been optimized to near 0, not intentionally. It's a resource allocation problem. Every social interaction has a price tag, and the min-maxer is running the calculation in real time during dinner. The work happy hour is $40. The destination wedding is $1,200 with flights. The friend group has slowly migrated to other min-maxers because at least those people understand why you're doing the math. Joy is listed as a budget line item. It requires justification. It has a cap. And then there's the dump stat the build doesn't acknowledge at all. Time. The min-maxer spreadsheet does not have a row for hours of my one finite life spent stress testing whether the $12 sushi was worth it. That row doesn't exist. The spreadsheet does not have a your kids will remember this column. The spreadsheet has what the spreadsheet has. Chapter 3, the compound interest religion. Here's where the build gets interesting. And by interesting, I mean theologically concerning. Compound interest is legitimately the most powerful passive ability in the IRL RPG. Put money in early, let it scale, watch it become an unreasonable number over time. This is real. This works. The min-maxer identified the best passive in the game and built their entire identity around it. But the passive ability became the god. Every dollar that gets spent is a dollar that isn't compounding. And if every dollar is a future dollar, then every purchase is theft from your future self. The $4 coffee isn't a coffee anymore. It's $87 in 30 years. The Spain trip your partner keeps asking about isn't a vacation. It's a withdrawal from the retirement account that doesn't exist yet. Speaking of the partner is the most important NPC in this build. They keep triggering a dialogue option the min-maxer has locked. We have 400,000 saved. Can we go to Spain? The min-maxer responds, yes, but compound interest. The NPC has begun making vacation decisions unilaterally. This is documented. The Our Personal Finance and Bogleheads forums are full of exactly this scene, posted by both sides of the conversation. The min-maxer's Roth IRA is a sacred artifact, maxed every year since age 22, currently projected to hit 2.1 million at retirement, untouchable. The min-maxer will not spend it. They will optimize around it. They will protect it with the same energy other people reserve for their children, which brings us to the bug. bug. Chapter 4. The memory dividend glitch. The min-maxer spreadsheet tracks everything that compounds through markets. It does not track anything that compounds through memory. Bill Perkins, author of Die with Zero, nemesis of the FIRE faction, introduced the concept of memory dividends. The idea is straightforward. Experiences pay returns. A great vacation, a weekend with your kids when they're 7, the trip you took with your college friends before everyone scattered, these yield dividends for decades. You get the experience once. You get the memory for the rest of your life. Money in a savings account compounds forward. Experiences compound backward. The min-maxer correctly identified that buying stuff is a bad investment. Material possessions depreciate fast. The excitement fades. The thing just sits there. What they incorrectly concluded is that all spending behaves the same way. It doesn't. Experiences appreciate. The memory of the trip gets better with time. The latte is gone in 20 minutes, but the trip you took for your anniversary is still paying dividends at 65. The min-maxer optimized for the dollar that compounds and ignored the experience that also compounds. The spreadsheet doesn't track memory dividends, so the bill doesn't know they exist. That's not a discipline problem. That's a missing variable. Chapter 5. The go-go years. Bug. This one is the most expensive bug in the build, and it's time-gated, which means it can't be patched retroactively. Bill Perkins divides life into 3 phases: go-go years, slow-go years, and no-go years. In the go-go years, roughly your 20s through 50s, you have the energy, the health, and ideally the resources to do the things that require all 3. Backpack through Southeast Asia, ski the difficult runs, chase your toddlers around a beach. In the slow-go years, you can still do most things just slower. In the no-go years, the menu gets shorter. The min-maxer is saving aggressively through the go-go years to fund retirement in the no-go years. The math works. The knees might not. And here's the part that actually stings. Research on real retirees shows that most of them arrive at the end with too much money and too few good experiences left to spend it on. The min-maxer is solving a problem that statistically doesn't exist for people who save consistently. They will hit their number, they will have the portfolio, and they will arrive at retirement having optimized the financial layer of the game while the experiential layer ran out of content. You can't re-roll your 30s. The go-go years don't respawn. This isn't a reversible decision, it's a permanent stat allocation made in real time every year, whether you're paying attention or not. Chapter 6. The saving regret mechanic. Here's the one the min-maxer really can't process. The conventional wisdom says people who don't save enough regret it. The min-maxer knows this. They built the entire character around it. What they don't know is that the data goes both directions. Research on saving regret, actual surveys of actual savers, found that regret over savings was present among the wealthiest people, the highest earners, and the most financially literate. These are not people who ran out of money. These are people who did everything right, and they still felt like they missed something. The regret isn't caused by failure. The regret is just part of the process. The specific flavor of regret the min-maxer will eventually develop isn't, "I wish I'd bought more stuff." It's, "I wish I'd been there." A middle-aged professional in a Harvard Business Review piece put it plainly. "In my 30s, I focused so much on saving that I passed up opportunities to spend on meaningful experiences. Looking back, a bit more strategic splurging could have made that decade more enjoyable." The Bogleheads Forum, the min-maxer's home guild, Vanguard-aligned index fund faithful, has entire threads of high net worth retirees asking the same question. Did I optimize too hard? These are the endgame players. They hit the number, they're in retirement, and they're asking whether the build was worth it. Both regrets are real. The regret of not saving enough and the regret of not spending on the right things. The min-maxer's build protects against exactly one of them. Now, before we get to the patch, if you've made it this far and you're recognizing the build, either in yourself or in someone you live with, drop a comment. Seriously, the min-maxer sightings in the comment section of the main character video were impressive. Let's see if this one matches. And if you haven't seen the main character breakdown, it's linked. It's the build that runs the exact opposite spec, and watching both back to back is genuinely useful for understanding the full range of ways people can be wrong about money in completely opposite directions. Chapter 7. The build patch. Let's be precise here because the min-maxer deserves precision. The patch is not spend recklessly. That's not a patch. That's installing a different bug. The main character already runs that build and it's covered. The patch is a 5 to 10% respic of the savings budget into experiences that compound through memory rather than through markets. The retirement still happens. The Roth IRA is untouched. The emergency fund stays full. The index funds keep doing what index funds do. The only change is that a small allocation, specifically budgeted, planned in advance, not impulsive, goes toward the go-go year content before the go-go years expire. And here's where the min-maxer's own data actually supports the patch. Common Sense Lab research found that people regret small purchases far more more than large ones. The latte, the impulse buy, the $10 thing you grabbed without thinking, those generate regret. But a planned intentional purchase of something meaningful, satisfaction goes up. Decisions made outside the heat of the moment are more satisfying than ones made under pressure. The min-maxer is right that impulse spending is bad. They're wrong that all spending behaves the same way. Planned splurging is a different mechanic entirely. The patch notes for this build look like this. Emergency fund stays. Roth IRA stays. Still maxed, still sacred. Savings rate drops from 65% to 58%. That 7% gets reallocated to a memory dividend fund. Actual budget line, actual number, actual permission to spend it. The fund is for experiences only, not stuff. Experiences. The ones that pay dividends in 30 years when you're trying to remember what your kids sounded like at age 8. The extreme frugality burnout rate is documented. Financial planners say aggressive FIRE plans crack eventually. Eventually it crumbles, you have to have room to enjoy your life. Sam Dogan, the financial samurai, one of the original architects of the FIRE movement, has publicly walked it back. The original min-maxers are quitting the build. Not because the math was wrong, because the math was running the wrong equation. The goal isn't to maximize wealth. The goal is to maximize lifetime fulfillment, which comes from experiences and your lasting memories of them. The spreadsheet is correctly optimized, it's just solving for the wrong variable. Ed Diener's happiness research is the final piece. On a 1 to 10 happiness scale, the people at 10, peak contentment, actually earned less and saved less than the 8s and 9s. The 8s and 9s are driven enough to build, present enough to enjoy. The min-maxer is grinding for happiness and landing in the 6 to 7 range, where the engine runs on anxiety. The build is optimizing for a destination it keeps moving. The patch doesn't change the class. The min-maxer stays a min-maxer. The wisdom stays maxed. The constitution stays at 99. The spreadsheet stays. The suffering is the only thing getting nerfed. The min-maxer will retire. The math guarantees it. They will hit the number, probably ahead of schedule, probably with a portfolio that would make the Bogleheads Forum weep with pride. They will sit down at the desk on the last day of work and the spreadsheet will show a clean exit. And then they will have to figure out what to do with the time. The bill didn't have a column for that. The kids are grown. The friends moved on. The partner booked Spain years ago and went with someone who said yes. The go-go years are in the slow-go zone now. The Roth IRA is worth $2.1 million. The retirement party is small, tasteful, under budget. Someone gives a toast. They call the min-maxer Sir. Build rating, mechanically excellent, patch recommended.